Check the mic and make sure it sound right.
Hi, I'm DK Will. This is DK Will Talk About It. And you see here a reply from an earlier video from TQ. And TQ wrote to me asking if I would do a video on Warka Bank in Iraq and how they stole all the customers' money. I have it up on here on screen so you can read the conversation that we had. And so I did do some investigation into that. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that Warka Bank situation. And hopefully I'm going to utilize this event, this occurrence, this development, this history in such a way as to help everyone be careful and protect yourselves. But TQ gives a very good history here in this section here when he said it originated with them having an account in America at Citi. Hillary Clinton allowed the investments of international into Iraq. So basically it appears to be government sanctioned, and obviously, let's face it, anytime any banks come across the United States and enter the United States, the government definitely knows what's going on. But it didn't turn out well for a lot of folks here, and as I go through this video here, you'll see a bit of the history, and I hope I do it some justice, TQ, because I did the research that I promised, and I'll show what I've come up with thus far. Let's get into it. In an effort to go as chronologically as I could in investigating this, once I found information, you can see an article here that dates all the way back to 2008, and it's posing the question: Warka Bank, is it a scam? Keep in mind, even for those who invested in the Iraqi dinar, a lot of people said is Iraqi dinar a scam. Well, the Iraqi dinar is a currency. It's a legitimate currency. It's not a scam. It's how people take advantage of it and opportunities revolving around it that becomes a scam. And I'll cut to the chase here, and that appears to be what happened with a lot of people who thought they were investing in the Iraqi dinar through Warka Bank. And this person, Muhammad, wrote in July 8th of 2008, he mentioned that he was new to the ISIX, that's the Iraqi Stock Exchange. He has some dinar in cash, but has recently opened a bank account with Warka, but haven't yet transferred any money. Good for him. I'm a very suspicious person. Have read somewhere that it is a scam and they don't plan to return our money. That is foreboding prophecy right there, because as we go on, we'll find out that that just may be exactly what happened. But when it comes to Warka being a scam, yeah, I think the better word to take to heart is corrupt. And when I say corrupt, I'm not necessarily applying it specifically to the bank or to TQ's reference to Obama and Hillary Clinton. I'm referring it to any individual that scams somebody out of their money with the appearance of looking legitimate. Because this Warka Bank came with a lot of legitimacy, which I'll show you here momentarily. But you'll notice as far back as 2008, it says here from Space Tuna that they've been pulling money out and getting it back just fine. It says here from Creation Works, it's been implicated in a transfer of $1.2 billion outside the country. That's a little twisting of the news, which you'll see as we go on. But it goes on to show that there was some hesitancy revolving around it. And had I been Mohammed, I would have not put any money in there, because there's nothing that forces you to put your money in those situations other than greed. And the moment your spider senses goes off, it's time to check yourself. Before what? Before you wreck yourself. And it's situations like this that contribute to the legitimacy of Warka Bank. It says here, article now, we're looking at March of 2010. It says an Iraq-owned bank opens on U.S. base as in military, folks. And we'll find out military people got burned. But as we read this article here, we says the Iraqi-based industrial zone here has long been a place where aspiring business-minded Iraqis work with U.S. forces and support the local economy by providing jobs. Okay, and it goes on to say, on January 13, 2010, Cobb Adder said one of the most significant events to happen in IBIZ since its establishment, the grand opening and ribbon-cutting ceremony of Warka Bank. Warka has one of the largest banking operations in Iraq, operating over 150 locations throughout the country of Iraq. And so that added to its legitimacy there. And at this point in 2010, if a person was considering investing in it, then it might not have looked as dangerous. But as I go on with this video, I'm going to show safer ways for American citizens to invest in foreign companies. And I answered a question from an individual and another question about ISICs and how, there's not enough liquidity there to take the risk. And see, when you invest, you have to take the expected return against the potential risk. And there's no need to be risky out of greed. But in this instance, it looks like, it looks like a legitimate bank with legitimate services and legitimate confirmation. It says the opening ceremony for Warka Bank drew elected Iraqi officials, including Al-Sadiq Al-Liqai, the Nasiriyah district, the district leaders from the provincial reconstruction team, and a smattering of U.S. soldiers, Defense Department civilians, and other well-wishers. I mean, that's a beautiful start. However, let's not forget, back then, Iraq was one of the most corrupt countries on the planet. And despite that ceremonial opening, we can see here that not much later, now we're only in September of 2010, remembering that the previous article was from March of 2010, there's a question posed, has the Warka Bank collapsed? It says here, in addressing that also misstatement about the billions, speculation is rife that Iraq's Warka Bank has collapsed, but its managing director said it has not collapsed, but faced problems due to a recent decision of the Iraqi government to withdraw over $1.6 billion from the bank. Okay, that might address that misstatement on the $1.2 billion. It's the government taking its money. Now, if you have been following Iraq within any period of time, you probably know that al-Maliki and his corrupt son were involved in the government back then and ran off with billions. So when it says in this corrupt Iraqi government, I think it was like 176 or 167 out of 176 or something like that, countries amongst the most corrupt. And so, not 176, put it higher, way up there high. But nonetheless, the point is, it's a corrupt country. And as an average U.S. citizen and not one of the big players with connections, it's not really safe to be investing in the ISEX. It's not really safe, which has no liquidity anyway. It's not really safe to be investing in manners of like this, the convoluted manners of getting your Iraqi dinar. Now, if you were a military person back then, that's a little different because you had boots on the ground, I would imagine, as well in Iraq. So that's different. You would actually be there on the ground using their banks. But if you're just a person like myself, you don't even have a passport to be in Iraq, it doesn't really pay to be investing in Iraq that way. Keep in mind my prior video about the Iraqi dinar and about currency being a bearer instrument, B-E-A-R-E-R. It has to be in your hands, especially if it's foreign currency like this. Now, if you're a world traveler and you go back and forth and you have bank accounts there and residences there, that's a whole different story. But to be wondering about whether one of the largest banks in the country has collapsed, that's kind of a telltale sign, is it not? And you'll see here, because I mentioned the military, it says that Warka may cost U.S. Army millions. And this article now is 4 years later in April of 2014. It says, like a replay of the Great Depression, a bank in Iraq went under in 2010. So does that answer the question about has it collapsed in 2010? We'll see. We'll see. It's pretty convoluted. Nearly taken millions of American dollars with it. I apologize for the dog barking there. I had a guy knock at the door. They're out there trimming the tree. The storm knocked the tree down in my yard, so I'm getting some work done, spending money I don't really want to spend, but I have to spend. Welcome to home ownership. But this article, continuing on, you can see there's a progression of events here with the Warka Bank, and you can follow it along because see it goes all the way back into 2011, and you can see here we're going to scroll up. Let me see here, 2011. Here it says Warka assets are seized in a sub-carpet flight. So here in August of 2011, Winston Churchill once likened observing Soviet politics to watching two dogs fighting under a carpet. All you can say for sure is that something's going on. The latest news on Warka Bank has exactly this sub-carpet quality. That's because they're corrupt. And you're not in the country and you don't know what they're doing. All you know is it's dust is flying and you're not getting through trying to get through your access to your accounts. It says the ISC has ordered Workers Broker subsidiary to stop its operations in the market effective July 26, and that's in 2011. If you followed it along further, you can see Standard Chartered was in talks to buy Warka Bank. Now this is August of 2011, and they've been in talks for the past 3 to 4 months to buy a stake in the bank, one of Iraq's biggest private banks, a central bank official said Monday. So you can see how twisted it is. They wanted more than 50%. Well, that would be good, but let me go back. Those are the kind of people who should be doing foreign investment of that nature, not us. Perhaps military who's got their boots on the ground and they're living and banking there or functioning there. Here it says Warka Fat Lady begins to warm up. 2 stories. Nothing there. Moving on. That caught my eye because of the phrase. Warka Bank enters the Djibouti market. Now, if you remember Djibouti, that was something in the Kenya article that I did, wasn't it? But here, this is in 2012. He inaugurated the first subsidiary of the Iraqi Bank for investment and finance in Djibouti to offer full-range banking services. So they're still floundering and functioning in 2012. Here we say Warka placed under guardianship, and this happened in March of 2012. Placed private bank under guardianship to supervise it through insolvency. See where it's heading now, folks? You see where it's heading? And then as we move forward, it shows Iraqi political. We're looking at an article still in March. Nothing there worth talking about. Here they claim some kind of court victory a year later in March in 2013. Filed against the Central Bank of Iraqi, Warka Bank for investment and finance. Okay, so all types of things going on here. And then here we see the CBI lifted custody in September of 2013, following a final decision by the Financial Services Court on 26th of May 2013. Okay, so lots of things going on that you really don't want to be involved in. Why put yourself through those headaches? Now, I know this is historical, but I mentioned in my intro that I'm going to try to use this information for our benefit going forward. Because a lot of people started having troubles. Here you can see on Dinar Vets. I forgot my password. I'll check my email here in a minute and see if I got it back. But this person in 18 was having difficulty accessing his Warka Bank online account. We can see here, can't locate the URL, but when I try this URL, I get the 403 code. I'm also getting unsecured and uncertified notifications. All this is going down in 2018, folks. 2018. Folks who probably invested, turned their back, and didn't realize everything else that was going on that was putting their funds at jeopardy. How much jeopardy? So much jeopardy that Facebook created a victims group. Now, I don't go to Facebook anymore, but that's what you get when you go to the link. You can see over here there's a Facebook symbol. Connect with Iraqi Warka Bank victims. So yeah, that was a risky venture. That wasn't the wisest course to take. Not faulting anyone who took it, but the key to wisdom, one of the keys of wisdom, is to learn from mistakes. So hopefully, glean some information from this. Here's an article about foreign investment, and it gives definition. What is foreign investment? It occurs when foreign companies invest in domestic companies and seek active participation in their day-to-day operations and key strategic expansion. For example, if an American company invests in an Indian company, it will be a foreign investment. Now, little guys like us can, in essence, do foreign investment, is really what we've done those of us who have invested in Iraqi dinar. You've made a foreign investment into their currency. But the key here is to maintain the safety of being an American citizen, especially when investing in a country as corrupt as al-Maliki had it back in the days of the Warka Bank, or any other country for that matter. And so I can only emphasize that when you make investments, you can't let emotion and greed be the motivator. It has to be based on sound logic and reasoning, and you have to consider the pros, the cons of doing so. You can see here very often large global multinational companies try to expand their opportunities, not Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Johnny Jackson. You follow what I'm saying here? And so the moment you invest in a bank, now as time goes on with the new digital world, you'll be able to invest in banks that are virtual in nature, as in no brick and mortar whatsoever. But during the time of this investment, that didn't exist. And so if you couldn't walk over to the bank and address your account, and you weren't a world traveler or a military person, and you weren't a large global multinational company, that was not one of the safest ways to invest in the Iraqi dinar. And quite honestly, keep in mind that an Iraqi dinar has more value outside of the country than it does inside the country when it revalues. In Iraq, it's just like in the United States. A dollar is a dollar is a dollar if your money's in the country. But I can use an example of a dollar in the Panama Canal Zone when I was a kid, and the dollar was so strong. Whereas a dollar would buy you whatever it bought you in the United States, it bought you a heck of a lot more in Panama because of its value. We had a maid. My dad was a military man. I mean, we lived in the officers section of the base, but we literally had a maid named Maria come and clean our house. I could rent a horse for 50 cents for a half an hour because of the strength of the American dollar outside of the U.S. The same goes for the Iraqi dinar. When you put your money in an Iraqi bank, that's all you have is the value of that money in country. So that's not really a good way to do it either. Now, for those who are American citizens that want to invest in foreign, there is a method by which the government has set up where you can make investments in foreign companies and investments and still have the protections of being a United States citizen. Now, this may not apply directly to currencies, but it does apply to foreign investment. And that's where, here's the next lesson I guess I'm going to give on my videos. Understanding American Depository Receipts, ADRs. What is an ADR? It's a negotiable certificate issued by a U.S. depository bank representing a specified number of shares, usually one share, of a foreign company's stock. The risk goes with the U.S. depository bank. Now, of course, you still are subject to potential political risks and everything that may come in that country. You're still subject to certain risks, but you have the safety and security of having a U.S. depository bank representing you and buying those shares and attributing them to your account. The term an American depository receipt refers to a negotiable, meaning liquidity, a negotiable certificate issued by a U.S. depository bank representing a specified number of shares. ADRs offer U.S. investors a way to purchase stock in overseas companies that would not otherwise be available. Foreign firms also benefit, as ADRs enable them to attract American investors and capital without the hassle and expense of listing on the U.S. stock exchange. So this would address even the person who asked me about investing in ISX, Iraqi Stock Exchange. I do not encourage investment in the Iraqi Stock Exchange cold turkey for an American citizen. Quite honestly, listeners, If you haven't become sophisticated in your country and understanding financial investments, why venture outside of your country and take the risk and lose the protections that you have inside the country, specifically in reference to those who are United States citizens? The way they work, they're denominated in US dollars. The securities are held by a U.S. financial institution, the ones who should be over there investing, not us, often by an overseas branch. These securities are priced and traded in dollars and cleared through U.S. settlement systems. That's the safe way to invest in a foreign company. Now, we're going to have to get more and more sophisticated as things come to fruition. But as far as the Warka Bank thing goes, people got burned. TQ, and it doesn't look like there's any restitution coming around the corner. If it does, that's great, but it doesn't look like it's coming anytime soon. Quite honestly, folks, that's the same thing can happen here in this country when banks fail. And you know I've been doing videos about bank failures and bail-ins and things of that nature. And that's why sometimes investing in the bank may not be the best idea. Quite honestly, holding your Iraqi currency in your possession may be less risky nowadays than leaving your money in the bank, believe it or not. I think it was the Bearable Bull who said it a year and a half or two ago or something. You know, risk is the new safety, however he put it, but that's the truth. It's putting your money in dollars is going to be an attraction, but it's also going to be a trap. I believe that. But you have to have the courage to invest in the precious metals like gold and silver. You have to have the courage to invest in the cryptos that are going to survive the bloodbath that's likely to come when they all die, except for the 1% that survive. You're going to have the courage to have invested in these foreign currencies, that when the level playing field happens, your value in your foreign currencies goes up because the dollar levels off and comes down. You're going to have the kahunas to invest in things besides the American dollar, because with the global economy and the BRICS nations taking over, that's where things are heading. So TQ, I hope I did Warka Bank some justice. With my understanding so far, what I've gotten out of it, if I get more, I'll do the video, is that people made investments in the bank, and it didn't turn out well. And you can guarantee that before an Iraqi citizen got burned, an American citizen was going to get burned. And a lot of people got burned, including the military. It was during a very corrupt period. Al-Maliki and them were stealing money by the ton. And so people lost money. So what do I recommend? What I've recommended from the very beginning if you invest in foreign currencies. U.S. Treasury registered authorized dealers of foreign currency. Period. If you got your currency any other way, you need to start looking over your shoulder. If you got your country that way, you're going to be okay. If you're going to get currency in the future, U.S. Treasury registered authorized currency dealers. If you're not dealing with them, you probably shouldn't be dealing with the Iraqi dinar. I'm DK Will. This is DK Will Talk About It. I hope you don't hear them chainsaws going. If you do, forgive me. And I've talked about it. Have a wonderful day.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right